Welcome to this episode of Hugo Builds. This episode is going to be all about the bathroom. You guessed it, the kitchen. Morning. Now that I have the cabinets built, I'm going to start actually putting them in place. So I'm going to do two things. One, the most important thing is actually build the peninsula or the island where it should be. And that's because that's kind of the biggest part that the countertop guy is going to come measure. He's going to come this week at some point. The second is that I want to take my laser and my level and we're going to mark out exactly where the cabinets should be on the wall back there. Perfect. Now the place is clean and we are ready to put the measurements on the wall. Ikea provides a drawing package. When you actually purchase your kitchen, they print you off a whole guide and this is the exact measurements of your kitchen. So ours is super simple. What's going to happen is that we're going to have the fridge on the wall here. One thing to keep in mind is we're adding a little 3-inch filler panel that's going to go all the way to the top of the cabinet, and that's going to allow the doors to open. And then we have a 30-inch cabinet above the fridge with double doors and a side panel on that that's 5/8 inches thick. Then we have an upper cabinet that's 15. The lower cabinet is 15 as well, and both those have side panels that are 9/16. That brings us to the range and the range hood. Those are 30 inches, so we're gonna leave a little bit more than 30 just so that the range and the range hood has the right amount of space to go in. And finally, we have another 15 cabinet with 2 side panels. So what I'm going to do now is that I have my laser level right here. We're gonna draw the entire kitchen on the wall before it's installed. So from the corner of the wall, that's gonna be 3 inches. If there's any play in this wall, we'll adjust this with the side panel. Those are gonna get installed last, and those are gonna be cut to fill the gap exactly. So if there's a little bit of movement in the wall, we're gonna take the top measurement, the bottom measurement, and then we're gonna have a piece to fill in that gap. So we're gonna start from 3 inches, and then we got a 30-inch cabinet, which is above the fridge. And then we're gonna go 33 and 5/8, because the side panel is 5/8 of an inch. And again, we're trying to be as precise as we can here, but once those are hung, you can slide them on the rail a little bit. We're gonna cut each one of those rails just a little bit short so that there's a little bit of movement on both sides and they won't pop out if that happens. And you're gonna want something really straight, like a long level. You can even have much longer levels than this. The longest I have is a 36-inch, but we'll use that to translate and we'll pair that with the laser. So now I'm gonna shoot my laser vertically, like you can see there. I'm gonna try to align that roughly with the spot, and you want that dead center on your line. I always try to get the laser roughly aligned with my mark, and that way you're not getting a thicker laser line. I find that when you're a little bit at an angle, essentially because the laser is a light, if it's too much at an angle, you'll start getting like a thicker line, which is not as accurate. So I'm gonna measure off this distance here. I don't know if it's clear on the camera, but behind me, we're all done the vertical pencil lines for everything. What I did here is I measured the depth of the fridge cabinet, and then I left 40 inches. You can go from like 36 to 42. I think 40 is a good measurement for a distance between some cabinets and the island. We don't want to take away too much from the living room area here. And it's just a single person coming down here. There's no dishwasher. It's not a huge kitchen. So I think in this case, it's okay to be a little bit compact. It's still going to be plenty comfortable. Now, as you can see, there's some plumbing coming out of the wall here. That is going to be cut out of the back cabinet. I'm gonna mark out where the island is, and I'm gonna have to cut out some of this flooring so that the island is sitting directly on the slab. How I'm going to do that is that I bought some 2x6s and I ripped them on the table saw to be 4.5 plus 3/16. So that's 4 and 11/16, I believe, is the measurement of these. And what that is that the 3/16 is the thickness of the floor. So that when these are on the slab and the floor is built up around them, the cabinets are still going to seem like they're 4.5 inches off of the floor. So that toe kick is gonna fit right nice and clean underneath there. The next step is we're going to do the horizontal measurements. So again, those measurements are all on the Ikea documents. The base is 4.5 inches higher than the highest point on your floor. So we're gonna kind of use the level, see if there's any bumps and stuff here. It is a brand new slab on a brand new floor, so I think it should be pretty level. But we'll double check just in case. We'll do our laser lines and then we'll start building our horizontal lines from there. That will give us the exact measurement of where the suspension rails need to go. Yesterday, we marked out everything on the walls. You guys might be wondering who this guy is. This is my dad, Mike, and he's gonna help me put the cabinets in today. So he built our cottage. He's got a lot of experience in the in construction, so he's gonna help me out put everything together. It's always best to have kind of two heads is better than one. Now that everything's marked, I even marked the studs. You might be able to see the dashed green lines. What we're gonna do is that we're gonna hang the suspension rails that come from the Ikea system, and then everything should just hang on that. I'm missing a few pieces like the side panels, so we're just gonna put the cabinets for now. I think the trickiest part is gonna be the island, but we'll get to that later. So let's get started on this back wall. And yeah, I'm just gonna time lapse this. I might stop it a few times just to explain, but I think it's pretty simple. If you guys are doing the Ikea cabinets, it comes with a set of instructions that's super thorough, and essentially you're just hanging your rails and everything is hanging off this system. So let's get to it.
B goes into A and C goes into B, and
we had to get a lot of Allen keys to put this thing together. We have all the wall cabinets hung. I think it went pretty smoothly, other than the fact that I hadn't marked the proper stud locations. For some reason, the entire basement is 24 on center, but this wall was 16 on center. We ended up using a few toggle anchors. This thing right here, you drill a 1/2 inch hole, you pass this through, and then you just press on this, and imagine the drywall here, and that holds, it can hold up to 240 pounds, I think, on a 1/2 inch drywall. So where we didn't have a stud, we put it in these strong anchors, and then you have a 2-inch screw going through this, and it becomes really solid. This really digs in. These are gonna be super solid. As you can see, I'm still missing the side panel there, so we can't fix these permanently into place until the side panel is on the side of the fridge. So we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is the island. Now the island's really important because we're getting the countertops measured tomorrow, so we want the island to at least be in place. First things first, we're gonna cut the floor. The reason I have to cut the floor is because the manufacturer recommends not installing anything too heavy on the actual floating floor. I might just be being a little cautious. I don't know if it's fully necessary, but we're gonna have a nice base made out of 2x6s under the island that will be fastened directly into the concrete, so the island's not going anywhere. Especially since we're putting in quartz countertops, which are gonna be pretty heavy. I don't want this whole floor system to start unclicking and stuff. And from what I read online, that is a possibility. I'm going to put the legs on the island just so that I can have them at the right height. And what I'll do is that this 2x6 base that I'll put in, I'll actually put in right inside the legs so that it's in the middle of the cabinet. It doesn't go all the way to the very edge. It's just a nice solid 2x6 support in the center. And the toe kicks are gonna be able to use the clipping system and clip on here with no problems. I won't have to custom fabricate that. All right, so now that the floor is cut, what we're doing is that we're going to build a box for the island to sit on that's going to be attached directly onto the concrete. Those 2x6s that are flat to the ground are going to get screwed into the concrete with some Tapcon screws, and then we're going to lift up the exterior frame until the top is perfectly level and fasten that to the bottom ones. I got some of the pieces that were actually missing for the kitchen install, and now I think I have everything. My dad came around again today, so I didn't get much filming because we are actually trying to just get work done. But what we did was that we cut the big panel. So this guy right here and the big fridge panel. And let me tell you, that was a real pain it was a real pain. I suspect that the vinyl flooring that I installed recently, I used my circular saw to go into that. I don't know if it's like a glass impregnated vinyl or something for durability, but I think that ruined my blades, because even the other day I was trying to rip some 2x4s down, and my table saw, which is a fairly new Diablo blade, which I had cut a lot of these flooring pieces in, was really struggling to get to cut through these 2x4s, which usually cut like butter. And then handling the panels, so the side panel and the island panel here are 36 by 8 feet long. So handling a piece like that in the table saw, it's very tricky. So, you get a little bit of movement. We tried to strategically make our cut so that, like this one is under the countertop. There's one against the wall here. Some of the bigger panels, the cross cuts, we couldn't really fit, the 8-foot piece on the table saw. So some of those had to be done using the circular saw. And again, I think I ruined that blade. So when we did try cutting, it was really struggling for whatever reason. We had set up a guide on the 2 edges and, marked our line that we were just gonna follow, similar to a track saw. But I was having a lot of problems. So I got some of kind of jaggedy edges on mainly this panel, which we'll figure something out to cover them. Now I have all my panels cut. As far as cutting panels, I checked out a lot of Cody Horvey's YouTube stuff for installing IKEA cabinets. He does a really good and thorough job at showing you exactly all the scenarios you might face when cutting these panels and stuff. So I would really recommend going to check out his videos before you do the installation. I followed the simple videos. I'd never done a kitchen installation before, and I think it's turning out real nice. And we have a special guest. She's not just good for outros.
I've just been hanging out with a friend drinking wine, and I'm coming to take a look at the progress, and it looks really good. Thank you.
I'm going to show you how I'm installing kind of one panel. The panel is not yet attached to the side of the cabinet. All we did for this one was that we cut off a couple of inches at the top so that it's flush with the top and bottom. We're not doing any deco strip and stuff, so that's why they come a little bit longer in case you want to have some of that decorative stuff. I'm using heavy duty clamps to just clamp that on. I made sure that that was flush to the front of the door before I put the clamps on. And I'm using little shims in the back to just take it off maybe, a 1/16 of an inch off of the wall. That's going to be behind the range hood, so it doesn't really matter, just so that it's perfectly straight with that. And that happens because the wall isn't necessarily perfectly straight, perfectly plumb. So if there's a little bit of bowing in it, it'll make this stick out just a little bit, or kind of stick in a little bit, and then the door will be proud. And we want everything to be nice and flush, so we're using shims. And then I'm using a drill, which I've taped for the depth of my screw, and I'm using 1 1/4 inch screws. I'm going to pre-drill these. Clamps up, and then I'm going to do the back. And now this is perfectly flush. Don't mind this. This is just the plastic covering. It's actually kind of matte black under here, even though it looks shiny black. That is just the protective film. Side panel for tonight. It's almost 11 o'clock. I've been working a lot of evenings these days trying to get this done. My dad was here today and he said, oh, you have plenty of time. You have about 3 weeks. And I kind of realized the magnitude of the amount of work that's still left to do. But it's a labor of love. We got a tenant in, and so we're just gonna keep moving. Now that the Ikea side panels are done, this is where I will call it a night. Tomorrow, what I plan on doing is finishing up all the little filler panels. So essentially, this is all the little custom panels you have to cut from cover panels in order to fill in the little gaps. And that's, I guess, one of the downsides with the Ikea kitchen is that they come in standard sizes. So you got your 12-inch, your 15-inch, or 18-inch cabinets, but whatever odd measurements you have from that, you have to use filler panels, which is just buying extra side panels and then ripping them down on the table saw in order to fill these little gaps. You got a little one here beside the island. In this corner, you got this kind of one that's on the fridge now, and that's why we had put the 2x4 there, so we have some structure in the back to brad nail that too. Good morning, guys. Over the past couple of evenings, I've been doing kind of just a little nitty-gritty work, like getting all these cabinets and stuff assembled. I'm missing about 5 packs of hinges so that I can finish all my doors, but all the drawers are put in place now. So what's left is the cover panels, this little thing in the corner here, as you can tell. This fridge one isn't fastened. Other than that, I need to do the back of the island, and that's what we're going to do right now, because that's going to be kind of the most challenging. For the back and side of the island, I have a couple of panels. I have this side panel here, and then I have this really long back cover panel. We have to figure out exactly the distance away from the island to mount this thing. I'm going to clamp this thing in place, and then we're going to have a factory edge that's exposed here, and this big side panel is going to butt into the side of this thing right here. And then we'll either do like kind of a plywood backing or some 2x4s on here or something that this is going to get fixed to. Once I have the side panel in place here, what I wanted to do was that I want the other back panel to be flush. So what I did was I measured the back of the cabinet distance to this front face. The measurement from the back of the cabinet to here was 1 11/16, and the panel thickness itself is 11/16. That means I need exactly a 1-inch spacer here, and this is going to be my track that allows the back of the island to be mounted on here from the back so that there's no visible fasteners. There's already these little clips installed on the back of these cabinets, similar to the ones used to hang the cabinets on the tracks, except this one has holes for screws to go through. What I'm doing now is that I'm just brad nailing them into place. I'm going to do 2 layers of 1/2-inch plywood on the top and the bottom, and I'm going to brad nail this into the face of the cabinet, and then I'm going to drill a couple of, 2-inch screws or 1.25-inch screws into here just so it's even more solid. And then from the back here, I'm drilling a screw all the way through the panel, the back panel. So everything is going to be nice and solid, and that's really going to solidify the island in place. Now that the 2 plywood tracks are in place, I can slide this side panel into place and get it all attached from the other side onto the tracks. Now the back panel is properly secured, and again I used screws down here. So these are, again, the 1.25-inch screws that are going through the bracket, through the plywood that were pre-drilled, and then go and grab this back panel here. And this is the inside view. Again, I drilled 2 little holes at the bottom of the cabinets, and then those do the same. They go all the way through the plywood into the back panel, so I get a nice secure hold. And these are mostly going to be hidden by drawers. Kind of see the cross section. There's a little gap. And that's just so that this side panel that I have right here doesn't have to be cut. The side panel's cut now. The height. I was mentioning earlier that I still had the cover panels to do. So now that the island is all complete, I'm gonna finish this little cover panel and the one by the fridge. So I cut this down already to the proper width, which was like 2 and something. And that just covers this little side here. Now you remember when we were doing the kitchen install, I put in a 2x4 against the wall, and that is so that this little piece of filler panel, which is actually just a leftover from the island back piece, had something to rest on. I also had a few strips of stuff left over, so I sandwiched one between the 2x4 and the cabinet. It just happened to fit perfectly, and that allowed me to get everything nice and flush. And at the bottom here, it's an extra little detail. It's going to give me kind of a nice clean return so that it doesn't look like a thin little panel. Now what I'm going to do, now that I have some nice backing here, I'm actually just going to glue this, and then I'm going to put a few brad nails in the front. You can do this with little steel angles. Had I thought about it at Home Depot, I would have bought, these little 1/2-inch, 3/4-inch kind of L brackets that I could have made this piece first and then put it in. So there would have been no face fasteners. These are 16 gauge finishing nails. I don't think you'll really see them. I'll put kind of, as little as I can, and then I'll put a bunch of wood glue in the back so that everything is nice and solid. Well, I guess that's it for the filler panels. I'm only missing one side panel on the side of the cabinet. I'm going to go to Ikea tomorrow, Sunday, to try to get that, and then the missing hardware for the doors. And I think we'll be good to go. Well, I think this video is long enough already. I think that covers all the Ikea cabinet installation. I hope that was helpful to you guys. So once the countertops are in and the protective film is all off these cabinets, we're gonna revisit the kitchen so you can see how it turned out, all finished. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. and subscribe if you are not already. And if you want to be notified every time we make a new video, hit that little subscription bell.
Thank you for watching. Thanks for watching.
Peace.